chaos is the nature of things, but our posture to that chaos is really important.
Welcome back to the Better Everyday Podcast. John and Darren back with you.
John, another beautiful fall day.
Another beautiful fall day. You've got your Cuccinelli on today, I see.
It's yeah.
That's a nice one. I really like that one.
It's nice when you're just kind of warm.
I know. I'm surprised we don't have the fireplace on in the barn today.
Oh, that's a good idea.
We need to do that after the podcast. But yeah, it's that time of year. Man, I'll tell you, this season of my life with politics the way it is, with AI conversation, I got one in college, one just getting a driver's license. I got high school girlfriend around. Reese's girlfriend is I
saw Reese at the football game last weekend.
He wasn't with his girlfriend at the football game.
No.
Yeah.
But he was in the executive lounge.
Oh yeah. He gets these. Oh yeah, he gets these little perks. He finds his way into places. But
that was great.
Man, it's just in some ways it's the most exciting time of my life, and in other ways it's just like it almost feels apocalyptic at times. It feels like the world is changing so drastically, and maybe to the negative at times. I'm excited to bring some positivity to the conversation today.
You know, I turn a lot of things off.
That's maturity is what that's called.
But I mean, social, I don't engage much. I pretty well turn all that noise off. To some degree, news, I still stay connected to the news and the election and stuff, but I try to turn a lot of stuff off because too much is too much for me.
Yeah. I think that's wise. I also, I got a daughter in college in Chicago.
Yeah.
Can't turn that off.
Yeah.
And she's dealing with so much, and then I've got a son just into everything, and it's exciting times. I can't clear my head.
Yeah.
But I find myself constantly looking for perspective, and then constantly looking for optimism. I don't like the idea of positivity.
I'm sure you're going to find optimism in the election.
I think of two things when I think of optimism. I think of like positivity, which annoys me. Positivity to me is that sense of like looking for the good in things just because it's a perspective. Optimism is like this, hey, things can suck, but we're headed towards somewhere bright. There's a light somewhere, and we're headed towards where we're headed is better than where we started. To me, that's optimism. Positivity is that like, can't we all just get along, cheesy, annoying thing. And I want to be optimistic. I don't want to be just dismissively positive. I don't know if that makes sense.
Do you think there's, I'll go ahead and commit. I think people sometimes are glass half full.
Yeah.
And others are glass half empty. I notice it within the four walls of my house. And
what are you?
I'm half full all the time.
Okay.
So like hurricanes hit Florida, and in Sarasota in particular, I'm like, oh yeah, this will be cleaned up.
It'll be all right.
And in a couple of months. Now, there's a lot of devastation and stuff, but my communication is when somebody says, "Hey, how's things in Florida?" Oh, it's could have been worse, and it's going to be cleaned up next couple of months. Great.
Yeah.
Right. And depending on who you ask in our house, the world is just coming to an end. And so it's just, I think, and we even talk about that. It's like a stance or a posture that I think people sort of have, maybe.
Yeah, I think it also is influenced by your mental health, at least in my case. So this is a whole different podcast, but we always end up doing this. There was a time in my life where I would wake up in the morning, my anxiety was so bad and depression was so bad that I would hope I had a fever. And here's the reason.
That was when I was going to Sunday school, but I was only 6.
Yeah, right, exactly. But the reason is because then I would have a reason to feel like I feel. Because I'm not allowed to feel just anxious or depressed. I have to have something. So if I can say I have a fever, then people go, oh, okay. If I say that I just feel bad, people don't take that. So the way that translates into adulthood is then maybe my depression or my anxiety is okay if the world's going to hell. And even subconsciously, if the world's just going to nuts, then no wonder I feel like this. And no wonder it's okay and I think there's so much mental health involved in that conversation. Posture that you take towards optimism has a lot to do with what you believe about yourself and how you see your own mental health.
I think there's a lot to be said for, the amount of social news and all this stuff, the noise that's in our lives every single day on how bad things are. But I know when I'm talking to my kids, it's, and they're telling me, it's just so bad, and negative out there. And, I have a tendency to remind them that, when I was way younger than them, we had a president shot, we had a civil rights leader shot, we had a presidential candidate shot, and all within a period of 8 years, and they were rioting on campuses, and the world was also going to hell, at the same time. So maybe this is just what we do, right? Maybe obviously there's been worse times in the world. I can only imagine what World War II could have been like for a lot of people and stuff. But I think this just chaos is the nature of things. But our posture to that chaos is really important.
Wow. I think that's probably why I've gravitated towards our friendship, is because I need that perspective, and I totally believe that when I can get away from it. The conversation I wanted to have today is I brought this one to the forefront because this one means so much to me. This is an emotional topic to me. It's based on a book by Adam Grant called Givers and Takers. I actually thought it was a new book. Amazon doesn't do a very good job of putting the dates of their book, the copyright dates up. It's like they bury those or something. Yeah. All of a sudden it just popped up in my feed and I thought this was a new book. It's 2014.
Okay.
But the book is called Givers and Takers. And he basically presents that, this is the way that people see the world. Either you are someone who, he has basically 3 different stances. You're a giver, you're a taker, or you're a matcher. So a giver, so a matcher is the third. A giver is someone who gives and sees the world as an opportunity to give to other people.
Okay.
A taker is someone who just wants to see how much they can get from the people around them, and they believe the world is about how can I consume as much as possible from the people around me. A matcher is someone who looks and says, I want to give what I'm given, and I want to take as it makes sense, but I want to give in reciprocity, basically. And so he goes through what that looks like in the corporate world, what that looks like in real life, what are the goods and the bads of each of those sections. And I brought it up today because I feel like we are in a moment of leadership inside of business where we have to choose one of those. We have to be to a point where we are pursuing what it means for me to be the kind of leader or the kind of person who sees other people as an opportunity to give, as an opportunity to contribute to the betterment of their life and the betterment of the lives of their family and their friends. And I think this is...
So we're not just talking about consuming or producing. When you think of giver, we're not talking about financial necessarily, or we're talking about life giving, right?
Yeah. So, you've run into people in your life who you feel like they just want to see how much advantage they can get from knowing you, whether it's some sort of a political advantage, whether it's a relationship advantage, whether it's just, I'm going to use you for your connections, whatever it is, that's a taker. A taker can also just be someone who sees people as objects to use.
Yeah.
And I think this is not a hot take, but I believe that part of what we're seeing inside of small business right now in terms of the crisis of culture comes from a posture of leadership that is, how much can I get out of these people? How much can I wring out of them? And that somehow leadership has devolved into some people's minds to be this responsibility to squeeze every bit of efficiency I can out of you. And that has, in Adam Grant's perspective too, has created a corporate culture that the next generation has just said, I don't care how much you pay me. I don't care what it's involved. I'm not living that way. And I don't want to be around people who see me in that way.
That makes a lot of sense, because I mean, you can see that, you know, in organizations, in people. I mean, it actually reminds me a little bit of our, you know, prior podcast around inspiring and
Motivation.
And yeah, I can see that.
Yeah, I mean, when I think about this, it does make me really emotional, because I've had people in my life on both sides that have impacted me differently on both sides. My mom's mother, she had some sort of a weird accident in the hospital when she was born, and they put the wrong drops in her eyes. Mm-hmm. And it caused a serious infection and ended up causing an injury. She was legally blind. She could see enough
for most of her life?
All of her life.
Wow.
Never knew, she couldn't get a driver's license. She could talk to you, but she had these big, thick glasses. She had a couple of small jobs throughout her life, but never had a professional career. And I have never known someone who has had more impact as a giver to the people around her. And I think about her a lot when I think about my own, like, what kind of impact, what kind of legacy I want to leave. How do I want people to talk about me? And it reminds me of Stephen Covey saying, write your own eulogy. I got to speak at her funeral, and it was the easiest speech I've ever written. And everyone in the building nodded their head. And the line was around the corner, because this was a person who had just given her life to others. And never have I met anyone who was happier, more content, never had a six-figure salary, never had a nice car, and just gave. And there is something so attractive in that to me that I get emotional about it. Partially because I loved her so much, and the impact she made on me, but I just want that. I want to contribute to history the way she contributed to history.
I mean, you can see that along, you know, in your mom. So
yeah,
you can
same thing.
You can see it in you. I mean, you can, that has generational impacts.
Grant calls it the ripple effect.
As does Mike Bro.
Mike Bro, one of our favorite talks of all time.
Oh, one of my favorites.
If you've never heard Mike Bro, just go out and type in YouTube, Mike Bro ripples.
I stumbled on that sermon live. It was at Southeast Christian Church in Louisville. We were coming back from, I don't know, Gatlinburg or something. Decided to stop and spend the evening in Louisville listening to Bob Russell, who ran Southeast Christian Church. Unbeknownst to us, they had a guest minister.
You were disappointed when you found out.
I was so disappointed. And then Mike Bro gets up and does ripples there. And I was like, oh my God.
Which is now epic. I mean, it's thought of as one of the best talks. Yeah, around.
I mean, I was there. It was unbelievable.
But the whole concept is that, you know, this impact that you have generation after generation after generation comes from a sense of being intentional about it. That doesn't happen accidentally. It doesn't happen as a byproduct of being a particularly proficient person. It's about setting up this life that is about giving to others.
So what do you think, I mean, like in your grandmother's situation, what was the impetus for that? Or what was that like on a regular basis?
You know, if she were sitting here, she would say that it has to do with her faith. but I think her faith came from this as much as this came from her faith. So she loved deeply, and she had a moment, and she had her faults too, like we all do, but she had this ability to be able to stop in the middle of life and see a person instead of a problem or a situation or an annoyance, or she just had this ability to, no matter the situation, to pour a cup of coffee and listen. And I don't think it's common. I think it was more common when she was growing up, but I think it's also a little bit of the survival of the fittest thing. I think she didn't have a particular skill set, and she made people feel something when they were in her house and when they were around her, and that became her thing.
Yeah, she could do.
Yeah. So I may not be able to go, make a living for my family out in the marketplace, but I can be useful to the world by making them feel this thing. And it's interesting how that evolves throughout your life.
I told you I'm going back and listening to Richard Rohr's book, Universal Christ. The first time you and I read that, gosh, when was that? Because we sat out on the back porch.
Well, it was right when it came out, maybe 4 years ago, 5 years. Was it pre-pandemic?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, maybe 5 years.
At least. But, I arguably didn't understand.
Yeah.
I just didn't understand it. I told you I'm listening to it again and really understanding it this time. But it's one of his key points is sort of this concept, and he's not to get, religious on us or anything, but, he separates Jesus and Christ and says, it wasn't Jesus' last name. And
Yeah.
But, he really represents talks about the concept, of this thing of Christ in all things, or you can call it soul, you could call, lots of different names people use for that. But your grandmother obviously had that ability to see that in people, sort of maybe first and foremost.
Yeah.
Their humanity, their soul or whatever.
She used to say that her effort was to get more peaceful, more joyful, more happy the older she got. She said, I have so many friends who go the opposite way. They get grumpy. They get cantankerous. They don't want change. She was using an iPhone. Her eyes are so bad. She was using an iPhone on the biggest pictures to the day she died, trying to figure out, how can I learn? How can I she wanted new experiences. She would never say no to going to town. She didn't have a driver's license.
Town,
she always wanted to go to town. And it doesn't even matter where you're going. Let me find my purse. And there was just this sense in her that she was going to get better, not grumpy. And it made her mad when she would see her friends get grumpy. Like this, we should be getting better the older we get, not worse.
What was that? I don't remember whether it was a social post or what. I sent it to you maybe a week or two ago about I think you forwarded it on to your mom.
Oh, I probably did.
About getting better.
Yeah.
Just getting started at 80 and getting better.
That's how she felt. And it comes from this energy that you're not done. You're never done because there's another person in front of you who needs energy, who needs something you have. And, Grant says traits of givers, they want people to succeed. How many people have you run into in your life where their eyes light up when they hear something bad happened? They can't wait to gossip. They can't wait. They don't want people to succeed. What is that?
I feel like in some respects, I grew up a bit in that culture in the small town that I grew up in. I don't know why, but, I would hear people talking to my parents, and it was always like, this concept of taking delight might have been too strong of a word, but it was just like reveled a little bit in people not succeeding.
Yeah.
Or didn't want anybody to succeed more than them.
My daughter's so good at this. I was on the phone the other day with her, and she's in college, so I don't get to talk to her that much. So I'm always wanting to give her a little gossip of something, And she does this great thing that doesn't make me feel like a jerk, but she stops the conversation. She just goes, "Oh, that doesn't feel good.
Yeah, that's good.
Like I say, did you hear about so-and-so and the whole relationship with oh, that doesn't feel good. And I'm like, yeah, it doesn't.
My daughter's like that too.
Yeah.
Maris is like that.
I love that people can stand up for that, you know. He says, givers are generous with their time. This is the thing that we don't ever get back. You can be generous with your money and go make more, but you don't make more time. And when you give somebody that time, there is something more precious about it than anything else you have. And, you know, I was just thinking about this podcast. Right before we did this podcast, I was on a call with a friend who had is going through a really, really bad time. And my thought was, just to be honest, I have a podcast to record. Like, what?
Yeah.
What am I? That's me. Is that me being a taker? No, but it's me not being a giver in the moment. And so do I close this? Do I try to get out of this call? Do I try to end this quick? You know, this is the moment where you just stop and go, this person is more valuable than whatever task I have on my calendar today.
Just imagine if we take that posture all day long, every day.
You raise kids like my mom and grandkids with the sense that they are worth more than whatever skill set they have, and that they have a job on earth that's bigger than just productivity, that's about people. And I think then you end up leading companies, and you lead people around you that respect you differently. They follow you and because of who you are and because of the vision that you have, not because you pay them. And this is what the next generation craves. This is the crave that we feel. And we often call it, we often say the next generation is entitled. The next generation wants this or they want that. And maybe that's true, although I don't think it's any truer than the last generation. But I do think this generation wants to follow somebody who's worth following and who cares about human life above.
So, yeah, when we think about, the world being more complicated in a lot of ways, I mean, I see such positivity in the next generation.
I do too.
How they want to make the world a better place, and they don't just take status quo.
I do too. And my son's 16 and his girlfriend he's following after his dad's footsteps. Like I don't know how he ends up with this girl. She's just so cool and laid back and easygoing, but brilliant, great athlete, beautiful. And she's kind. Like 16-year-old girls weren't kind when I was in high school.
No.
16-year-old boys were throwing people in lockers and I know it's still happening, but the friends that my son has around right now give me hope. I didn't know kids like Reese and Jenna when I was in high school.
Yeah, you go back right now and you watch an episode of The Office.
Yeah.
Have you done that lately?
Oh, it's so cringy at times.
It's like, I can't believe. I mean, wasn't that long ago.
It doesn't age well.
No, it did not age well.
Yeah,
Although
it's still funny.
It's
but people are not kind. They're not.
No.
And it's just really interesting. And I think the idea of leadership generosity. I had a couple things written down here. I don't know that I want to say these as strongly as I felt them when I wrote this, but, to me, leadership generosity is the calling of this generation of baby boomers and people who are moving to retirement. We need generosity from leaders, which means letting other people lead even when you're better than they are. Mm-hmm. It means stop calling yourself a chief. On this podcast, can we kill that word? I can't believe you can still say it. I mean, it's such an insensitive thing to say ethnically.
Yeah.
But then you're the chief of what? Let's make up a new chief of something. How many chiefs can we have? But it's the older generation right now who wants that title so bad. Give it up. Give it up. And watch what it does to your company. Watch what it does to your firm. Watch what it does to your legacy. When you can be generous with your power. As much, even if you don't have very much, find whatever you have and give it away.
So what does Adam say about takers then?
So takers take the credit, even when other people do things. They look for take the credit. They blame others for mistakes, and they look for the credit. Competition. We've talked about this before, winners and losers. Takers believe that in order to win in business, you have to see your competition as the enemy. Whereas givers see that there's plenty. And I wrote down Uber. I just listened to the latest All In podcast with the Uber guy. I like him a lot. He decided I could think of Waymo as competition, or I could go say, let's work together. And now they're working together. And Tesla is working with Uber now. Instead of them going, what if we were competition there? Let's go conquer this thing. Let's go beat this thing up together, and let's go make everything better. The givers go, let's partner, let's collaborate. Takers have this sense of like, if you aren't on my team, you're an enemy. And it's dangerous.
A lot of the corporate world's designed that, political world's kind of designed that way.
It is.
In today's.
It's built that way. It's polarization. And takers polarize. Givers galvanize. And it's just life.
So then where do matchers fit in?
So the idea of a matcher is someone who pays close attention. And I don't think, he's obviously demeaning takers.
Yeah.
A giver is a personality type that is a little more measured. So he thinks of a matcher as someone who is calculating always. How much do I owe you? Which is a way that I don't like to live. But if you give me something, I got to give you something. And so a matcher will often sit back and wait for you to give first to figure out what's appropriate. How much should I give? Because let's see what you give first, instead of being the first one to give.
So does he think most of the world falls into, or let's just use the United States, does he think most of them fall into a category?
Corporate world, he believes, is run by, right now, baby boomers who were taught that the only way to be successful is to be a taker at that level. He also says some things about religion, that they're driven by people who have created sides and created this sense of competition and winners and losers, and that if religious organizations, and he makes it clear that he doesn't have any skin in the game, but if religious organizations wanted to adopt more members, they would be givers instead of takers. And then he makes a joke about Jesus being the biggest giver there was in history, and then his followers being takers. And I think that's really interesting. He says that takers do not commit their time to helping others or participate in activities that don't directly benefit themselves. So he lists off a bunch of mission statements from companies run by takers that have nothing to do with making anybody's life better. It's just about making their product sell more, making their stuff better for their own sake, and how that it's so deflating for people that are following you. I don't want to. What's in that for me to feel good about? Why would I follow that? And he really honestly makes it about a business strategy, that what people know intrinsically that your company is a taker. They feel weird that they are the product if your software's free. They know that you're taking from them even if it's free. Like, they get that sense, and they also know the opposite. They know when something is good and where the heart of the people are actually givers, and they follow that. And he thinks that evolution is leading us to find more givers, and that's the optimism in the whole story.
Yeah, I think that's the sort of the takeaway.
Yeah.
From what?
The giveaway.
The giveaway. From our session, it's just from this podcast. It's just the world is evolving. But I like the way Adam sort of puts those into categories, so that you can really kind of self-assess. Maybe where you are or where you want to be.
Yeah. at the end of my grandfather's life, my dad's dad, he had cancer and he was really ill, and he was a mess. And every day we would come home, we would come to his house, and it would be, he was incontinent. He was just a mess. And my grandmother, who I've been talking about, would come with me. I would go over and check on him, and she would come with me every day. And we knew what we were going to find every day. I could barely walk into the house, and my grandmother could not wait to get out of the car with a bucket and a mop and all the cleaning supplies. And I will never forget thinking, this is the kind of human being I want to be. And I guess whether it's a good business strategy, whether it's good leadership, I want my grandkids to talk about me the way we call her Mom, the way I talk about Mom. And it's about just choosing, how do I see the world? How do I see people and my role here?
Ripples.
It's ripples. Wow. That went deep. Thanks for listening to this today. Hope you heard something that you can move on, that you can ripple on into the people that matter most to you. Thanks for listening today. We'll see you next time on Better Every Day.